Sheep milk contains more protein than cow's milk, as well as more fat and higher concentrations of certain minerals. The sheep milk industry in New Zealand is very small, but some believe the export potential for sales of a variety of sheep milk products is huge.
The sheep milking space in New Zealand includes 5 pioneers. They include the very large operator, Blue River, now called Antara AG. Blue River are enormous on the global scale. They're producing powders and cheeses and up until recently ice creams for the export market mostly. You can buy it in New Zealand. They've been sourcing some of their cheese to New Zealand supermarkets, but largely it's offshore. Keith Nallon, the owner of that, has been a real pioneer in this space. Below that there are 4 operators. Waitui Kurutau Trust at Turangi, 3,000 ewes, producing frozen milk for cheesemakers. And then we have some artisan cheese producers. Origin Earth are a processor for cheese in the Hawke's Bay. Miles King, very famous in the sheep dairy operation. He's at Kingsmead in Masterton producing about 12 tonnes of cheese a year, so artisan into small spaces, catering and the farmers market thing. So it's a very small industry at this moment. People have realised that the global palate, but also the New Zealand palate has shifted. 2 things have really helped that along. The success of goat as a non-bovine small ruminant alternative, dairy goat cooperatives and their, 20 or 30 years of history of trying to make this work. People are starting to take notice. The interest of Landcorp, they're now going ahead with their sheep dairy conversion on the big Waireki conversion site just north of Taupo. That has created, I think, a lot of extra interest. Landcorp spending some money on this, getting involved in the joint venture with another party, with Scotty Chapman, his company, trying to make this work in a way which would be successful for New Zealand's largest farmer, I think gives people something to chew on. What we've done in the last couple of months is run a very successful conference for the industry. So we've been able to bring the whole industry, put them together into one tent and say, what are the problems we have? How can we solve those problems and what's the next steps? It was fantastic having the MB support in terms of the research side, but there's market and processing and operations which are very important to getting this work. The challenge at the moment is to form an industry body. Now, we're not quite sure what form that would take. There'll certainly be a sheep dairy society that would support the industry. The sheep dairy industry body might take the form of a cooperative, an investor, a company of something like that. But there are 2 major challenges to get over at the moment. One is simply milk supply. There are processors in New Zealand right now who will buy your milk. If you can produce sheep milk, then they will come out and buy it from you, because there is currently demand just nationally for sheep milk products, be it cheese or yogurts or ice creams. That's where we're up to. We think there's currently about maybe 25,000 milking ewes in New Zealand. There is certainly, I think, potential in New Zealand for around about 100,000 just to satisfy our local market. And that would be a massive step for the industry at its current thing. To achieve that, we need to get the genetics and the breeding sorted out. I think that's a collective problem. And in order to solve collective problems, you've got to form structures that people are prepared to commit to. I think there's an academic contribution to be made just there. The second one is a line to market. So where is the market and where can we make a good return on that? Now, this sheep milk is expensive. It's expensive to get from sheep. It's expensive to, and certainly in its early stages, to get it around, get it to the processors. So we can't go straight to a sort of commodity operation. We've got to look for those really high value products. Now, whether they're in nutraceuticals and pharmaceutical type things, or whether that's in high-end ice creams and yogurts and related foods. But I think the line to market is the important thing.
AgResearch is leading a 6-year research program, which is jointly funded by the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment and 3 of the sheep milk industries here in New Zealand. It's quite a broad program, so we're looking at the composition of the New Zealand sheep milk, because we know the gross composition, but no one actually knows the details of the detailed composition. And that could be quite different from sheep milk from other parts of the world. For instance, the Mediterranean or the Middle East, where the climate is completely different and where they don't have this grass-fed system that we have here in New Zealand. So we're looking at that to see if we can find some really interesting components in the sheep milk. And we're looking primarily at components that have health benefits. If we find such components, then we could use those to develop new, interesting products. The overall aspirational goal of this research program is to increase the exports to $200 million by 2030. And part of that is to, for instance, help the industry to develop new products that have health benefits. We want to be able to produce really good best practice guidelines for on-farm in terms of feeding, in terms of weaning, rearing, all this sort of things, nutrition for the animals to achieve the best result, which is a really good milk yield, but at the same time without compromising the health of the animals. And the other thing is to have some sort of quality assurance guidelines around the environmental aspects to ensure that when we export these products to overseas markets, that we have this reputation that our products are environmentally sustainable.
This program was made with funding from New Zealand On Air.